Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the webinar. I thought I'd start it off. Let me see where we're going with all of this. Well, yeah, there's still people joining. Good stuff. These webinars have been incredibly successful, a little bit more than we expected, to be honest, which is a good thing. And yet again, I have so many things going on in my life, work-wise and things like that, that I literally couldn't pre-record this. I try to pre-record this because then I can type hello to people who are saying hello. We have literally people saying hello from South Africa, from Noah, hello from the Yukon, which is like a double inception thing because Yukon was the code name for Rad Studio 12. Stephen. So yeah, Yukon from Yukon. That's very cool. Rude is asking questions about Android. We'll talk about that later. Ciao from Italy. Claudio's there. Netherlands. Rude. Albert is Ugari Italia. So Alberto. Hello there. Greetings from Italy. Hello from Duncan Rainey Chichester. Stephen Bullis. I'm not. Oh, well, now I've started a whole flood of people saying hi from Israel, hi from Italy, hi from Denmark, hi from Ann Arbor, Michigan, hi from Paris. Andrew Leggett. I suspect this is a little joke. He's saying, "Where's my accent from?" Andrew, I think you know this already. Maybe it's you're trolling me a little bit, but maybe not. I'm obviously British. I'm from born in London originally. My name is Ian Barker. You can see that on the screen. I'm the developer advocate for Embarcadero. Born in London, England. I was actually born in Woolwich, for those that really care about these things. And in 2009, I emigrated to the United States, and I live over here now. In fact, I've been a citizen for a number of years since 2013. I'm married to an American, and I have an American daughter who I'm pleased to say just got her grades through for her degree today, and she is graduating magna cum laude, for those that understand it, or laude, with straight A's. So well done to my daughter Brit. So she's a good kid. Hello from Germany, Sweden, all the rest of it. Okay, fair warning. Today's webinar is going to be a long one. It's probably going to be at least an hour and a half. Hi from Cyprus. Oh, I love Cyprus. And Canada and Pretoria and all the other places that saying hi. It's going to be a longish webinar because the subject itself is a little bit more complicated. Now, the reason it's more complicated is really just the initial setup. I want to emphasize that once you've set it up, then you can sort of pretty much click on go and it works. But iOS takes a little bit of setup to get there. So that's why this webinar is going to take a bit longer. We try to aim for an hour, but this is going to be, I think, at least an hour and a half, maybe longer. Just FYI. I will get to all of your questions. And Suri, no, I'm not a Hotspur fan. If I was born in Woolwich, really, I should be an Arsenal fan. But actually, I used to live in Milton Keynes. So I'm an MK Dons fan. Is the presentation available for download? Yes, it will be available for download when we finish, along with a webinar replay, which will be up today. Let's just start going through. I will get to everybody's hellos and questions and that. Hello to people from Ukraine as well. Vasil, good luck over there. I know around the world there's a lot of conflict going on. I always say to people, our only religion here is Delphi and Rad Studio, and our only politics is tabs and spaces. We can't all agree on everything, but one thing we do have, in common here is the camaraderie of being software developers. So, that's where I want to put myself. There are political views either way, and there's all sorts of humanitarian things going on as well. For those of you that are listening in countries that have got conflict, I hope you do okay. It's horrible. I can't imagine what it's like. Hello from Brazil, which there's a lot of people over in Brazil. Right, let's get on and do the webinar. Otherwise, we are going to be doing 2 or 3 hours of presentation, and that's not so good. Who am I? Well, this is me. As most of you probably know who I am now. My name is Ian Barker, and I am the Embarcadero developer advocate. What does that mean? Well, I'm kind of the wedge between Embarcadero and the real people, I shouldn't say that, but the other people out in the world there. My job is to kind of present the views of the company and the products of the company so that people are educated about them and understand them a bit more. But I'm also there to for you to contact and to put your views across about what things you don't like and what things you do like and all the rest of it. Um, you know, with any software engineering task of sufficient complexity, and the IDE and the compilers is definitely one of them. There are always going to be bugs, there are always going to be problems. I don't care who says otherwise. Anybody that says there are no bugs in their software either isn't using the software or is completely naive, because there is no such thing as bug-free software. I mean, there have been, space shuttles and things like that crash due to bugs in software. So, tell me about these things, report them on quality.embarcadero.com, and we do our best to fix them. We are trying to focus a lot more on quality in the IDE, and that is definitely apparent in 12. If you've bought 12, there is a patch on the way soon to fix some of the things that slip through, some of them relatively serious, but actually, many new features in Rad Studio 12 as well. But that's my job. If you want to contact me, please do. There's my email. I'm quite happy for you to email me, and I will respond personally. I'm not some kind of AI or robot. I will get back to you. I get a lot of emails a week, several hundred emails, and I will respond to every single one. It's also important to emphasize as well that I'm actually a real software developer. I'm not a marketing or salesperson, although I suppose in some ways what I'm doing now is kind of marketing/sales. But I get up every day and I'll write code. I say this every time I do a presentation because I want you to know that I use the IDE for real to create programs that people buy and pay good money for. I also get paid to contract and things like that as well. So I am a real software developer, and so I know the good points, I know the bad points, and if there's something that's bugging you and you don't feel like you're getting your voice heard at Embarcadero for whatever reason, mail goes astray, lots of people are busy, whatever, feel free to use my email there, ian.barker@embarcadero.com. I welcome you. Where are we at? Well, there's a whole series of webinars that are planned. We're calling them our winter webinars because it's winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. And so far, last week, we started off, or actually originally a week before that, with what can you do with Rad Studio 12. And last week was how to create a real Android app step by step. Now, what that did was it didn't really, by the way, the URL, yes, it will go to 404 at the moment. I haven't enabled the post yet until I've done the webinar because I want to put the replay on it. So yes, the webinar replay will post will not show at the moment. The Android app was really, I just wanted to show you how easily you can create an Android app. As we go through this series of webinars, we are going to do more with the apps, and we are going to make them do more for real. And we're going to create an app eventually that will have icons on it and graphics and do real things. Excuse me. But right now, I'm trying to show the basics of how to get things up and running. If you open your Rad Studio IDE, not only will you obviously be using the product, but if you have the welcome page open and if you look on to the right, if you've still got it set in the default setup, then on the right is a tab that says Learn, and in that Learn are some of the videos, including last week and the week before's video, and this one will appear in there as well. So if you want to replay, you can click on there. You don't need anything special. It's in the IDE. One question we've got there is it a common code base for both Android and iOS? Yes and no. I know that's not a good answer. The answer is yes, you can create apps that use almost entirely a shared code base, and it will work. And we're going to show that as we go along through the series of webinars. Like the Linux, Mac, and Windows apps will use shared code, and then eventually we will end up with a real app that connects to those desktop apps and is working on your mobile device and is using shared code. That's where we're at. So today we're going to look at iOS apps. So let's, I will come back to the end of the webinar to answer questions like how do you create an iOS app without having a Mac. We're going to talk about this in the webinar, so I won't answer those questions until we've gone through it. The very first thing you need to do, no matter what, is if you are going to create iOS apps, you have to work within the, and will the Q&A be included in the replay? Yes, it will, Leon, it will. The very first thing when you want to do iOS is you are working with Apple. And as you're aware, Apple are very much a closed shop, so to speak, in terms of how they control their ecosystem, how you control your apps getting onto iPhones, and how you control your apps getting onto iPads and Macs. Now, some people say that's a bad thing. They think of it as a monopoly. I personally say that it's a good thing. And the reason I think it's a good thing is if my father-in-law, who's not the youngest guy, is using his iPhone, I know it's very unlikely for him to download an app from the App Store that's got a virus. It does happen very, very occasionally. There's a rogue app that gets in there, but because of Apple's control and because of this developer toolchain that they have, it is unlikely that those apps will survive very long because Apple do control everything from start to finish. And we're going to talk about that. Meek says no sound. Meek, disconnect and reconnect again, and you'll probably find the sound works. We're using GoToWebinar as our platform at the moment. In the new year, we're going to move to Restream, which doesn't have the same problems. I prefer Restream because it gives us more like a TV experience, which is where we're going. So first thing you need to do, create an Apple developer account. Okay, now the reason for that is because without that, you can do nothing, absolutely nothing. They do a free version, but in order to create apps and do anything meaningful, you actually have to pay for one. And the two types of paid account are the regular Apple developer account for normal people that create normal apps, that go out and get downloaded in the Apple App Store, and then go out to iOS and Android. iOS and for iPhones and iPads, and also Macs. So if you sign up and you are developing for iOS, for iPhones and iPads, you're also able to develop for Mac. But whatever you do, you actually have to go ahead and sign up for that. If you are wanting to do enterprise apps, and that means apps that go to companies and only used by that company. So let's say, for example, you're a hotel chain and you want a specific app that's used by your employees to book, tables, I don't know, or something like that, and you don't want it to go into the App Store, you want to use it within your hotel chain, you can sign up for an Apple Enterprise Developer account. Hospitals use it and some other things as well. So that is only open to companies. You do need a thing called a DUNS number, a Dun & Bradstreet number, and it costs you a little bit more. It's $299 US. The differences currency obviously makes sense when you go to that portal. It will show you what the portal is, prices. What's the difference between an enterprise app and a normal app? An enterprise app is an application that's been signed using an Apple Enterprise Certificate. It's nearly always ad hoc. That means that you can copy it down to devices. But unlike regular ad hoc apps, because you can create Apple apps that you give out to your friends, as long as you know what their phones are, their iPhones or their iPads. It's not tied to a specific device. And yes, you can create both types of these, regular iOS apps and enterprise apps with Rad Studio with Delphi. Currently, you cannot do it with C++ Builder. With the latest version of C++ Builder 12, that is not going to work. But you can use 11.3 and install the SDK there. It's a bit more complicated if you want to use C++ Builder. Other people say, oh, can I use the C++ Community Edition? Yes, you can. It's the same thing. You need to make sure that you've got the right SDK installed, and you can go ahead and do it. But if not, you should probably use the trial or get a paid version of iOS 12 and a Rad Studio 12. Companies are verified by Apple, and they are also they have to pay yearly, just like you do if you're a developer. So people used to call that Mark is saying, is that one-time payment of $99 or a yearly subscription for the Apple developer account? The answer is yearly. That's how Apple do it. Nothing to do with Embarcadero. It's Apple's way of doing things. So yes, $99 a year. We get nothing out of that. That's just how they work. If you're using some other version of a programming language like Swift and Xcode, you would still have to pay that $99. There is no way around it. That is the Apple tax, quote unquote. Companies are verified by Apple. Individual developers are also verified by Apple in that you have to have a Apple ID. And if your app turns out to be rogue and something horrible, then they will suspend or even completely delete your Apple ID, which is a real pain in the neck. They will definitely suspend your developer account and definitely, not give you a refund, because I've heard of that happen with people that have transgressed. What is the Apple iOS Enterprise Program? We'll just talk about that very briefly, but what we're going to show today is not an enterprise app. For enterprise apps, if you're working in a business, then developers are either in-house developers or external contractors. So if you are wanting to create apps for a business and work as a contractor, the company have to have an Apple Enterprise developer account, and you have to have your own individual developer account for $99. Once they've done that, then you can join their enterprise team. And off you go. Now, the Visiting Nurse Association of the Midlands is one of my own customers that I work with, and they join me along to their team. And as you can see on that screen there, it shows that I am a member of their team. But I do have my own individual developer account. Why would you want to do this? Well, if you're a developer, it allows you to create private apps for corporate customers. In other words, apps that don't go through the iOS App Store. You can literally distribute those apps via a web page, or you can deliver them via Wi-Fi. And that's outside of the scope of this webinar today for enterprise apps. There is another webinar I did where it talks entirely about enterprise apps, which I'll put links on later. And why would you want to do it? Well, it can be very lucrative. If you think about the average price for an app in the App Store, it might be 99 cents or $1.99, or if you're very lucky, let's say $9.99. And that would have to be a really remarkable app to get $10 out of it. Apple take 30% of that. So you're actually getting $7 on a $10 app. Now, I just want you to think about how much your bills are. For a start, you've got to pay $99 a year to Apple, and you've got to have some kind of Mac hardware available, although we'll talk about alternatives in a moment. And you've got to buy your PC, and you've got to buy your rent, pay your rent, or your food, or your mortgage, or whatever. And it doesn't leave. You've got to sell a lot of apps at $4.99 or $9.99 to break even, compared to a regular job. Maybe not in some countries. Some of the countries where the economy is more in favor of a lower price. So Brazil, for example, has a more buoyant economy at a lower rate of exchange, and certainly other countries like Tunisia and things like that as well is more viable. But certainly in some of the European countries and Western countries, you've got to sell a lot of apps to make money, and that's tricky. But also with the corporate customer, you can sell your time. You can sell labor, development labor. You can sell consultancy, and you can provide technical support and charge for that. You can, go and give people training and repeat business. That's not something you would do with a normal iPhone app. It might be something you don't want to do, but it is a way of making money. Most important thing, of course, is for those enterprise apps, you don't pay any royalties to Apple. You just literally create the app, and then the customer pays you for that app. And they might pay a lump sum, and they might pay you per copy they install. That's up to you. With an enterprise app, there's no approvals process and no guidelines either. You can literally ignore every single development guideline that Apple have, and they have got a lot, and just create an app that does whatever you want, and get on with it and install it. But however, we're going to talk about regular iOS apps. But the principle's the same, whatever you're going to do, whether it's an enterprise app or you're going in the App Store. And the first thing you need to do is you need to understand what needs to be set up, because with iOS, there's a lot. With Android, there's virtually nothing. But with iOS, there is a significant amount of setup. Once it's set up, you don't have to do this again, and it's almost transparent. Okay? But the setup for iOS is more complicated. And what you need to do is go to Help Wizard's Mobile Help Wizard. And that is the order. So click on Help Wizard's Mobile Help Wizard, then click on the tab that says iOS. In there is a page that tells you all the steps you need to set the thing up. I'm going to show you those anyway in these slides, but just so you understand what you can do, you can go to that Help Wizard and get that help. Okay. Before you do that, you need to have already, as we talked about, sign up for an Apple account, and you need, it's not optional, you will need at least an iOS distribution certificate and a development certificate, and provisioning profiles. The question from Laszlo says, I would like to create iOS apps for myself at first, based on Apple. Do I have to pay the annual fee to install and run an app on my phone only? How can I do this in Delphi? Yes, you do have to pay that fee. Unfortunately, it is not optional. That $99 is what Apple charge, and it's effectively the price for Xcode, which we're going to talk about in a moment, and all the SDK access. You would need to pay that every year. There is no way around it. They do a free developer account, but it doesn't really give you anything useful. So sorry about that, Laszlo. And how can you do this with Delphi? Well, we're just going to show you. So you need a distribution certificate, a development certificate, and a provisioning profile. So that's all explained in the App Wizard, and also Apple have a lot of help for this as well. But once you've done that, you need to note these things down. Okay. My screen keeps changing automatically. I'm not quite sure what that is. I'm going to stop that in a minute. Anyway, so that's what you need. But we'll talk about that in a moment. You must have Xcode installed and working on a Mac. Must have it. If you don't have Xcode installed, you need to get on and do it. I suggest you don't try and do it now, because it is a huge download, and I'm talking like 10 gig or more, 10 gigabytes. So don't try this on a restricted connection that's got bandwidth restriction, because it's not going to be cheap. It's going to cost you money if you try and do it on a tethered iPhone or something like that, and you've got a mobile plan, a cell plan that gives you limited bandwidth. You're going to eat through that bandwidth in five minutes. So be careful. You also need to have a thing called PA server, and I'm going to show you the steps for that in a moment. But you need to have them installed on the Mac. Now, the big $50,000 question. What if you don't have a Mac? Well, there's three options to this. Okay. Two of them are a service that you can get in the cloud. Okay. So you don't have to have a Mac at all. In theory, you do, but you have to have access to a Mac, but it doesn't have to be your Mac. It can be someone else's. So, for example, you can go to macincloud.com, and we are not endorsing these people. Embarcadero are not endorsing them directly, but I personally have used these people in the past, and I found the service great. That's all I can say. Your experience may vary, and I don't know, they may have got better or worse since I use them, but I certainly didn't have a problem with them. And it gives you a web-based or cloud-based, genuine, fully legitimate Mac to access. Their plans are quite cheap. You can pay by the hour, you can pay by the day, you can pay by the month, I think, or you can pay quarterly. And they may even have an annual plan. I don't know, but go there and have a look. So that's one option. That's in the cloud. Okay. And Mac in cloud is costly. Well, actually, it depends on your definition of costly. Okay. Second option, what if you don't have Mac? Well, you can use Mac Stadium. Okay, Mac Stadium is another option. It's exactly the same thing, except it's a cloud-based, a genuine, fully legitimate Mac. It's exactly the same system, and they also advertise that you can set up what you like on there. They've got different options based on what you want. And Ramaz is saying it doesn't work. I disagree. I've used it. I used it about 3 months ago. It worked fine. So email me if you want, Ramaz, and let's see. And if not, I'll email Mac in Cloud or Mac Stadium and ask them what the problem is. But if you can't, if you really do want a genuine Mac, but you can't afford the absolutely latest one. Well, here's a tip from David I into Simone. David I, well known as a developer advocate, used to wear the Hawaiian shirts, got a big beard. David I always looks to me like everybody's idea of the a typical developer. I'm just seeing if he's actually logged in at the moment. He usually comes along. I can't see him in the list. David I. Yes, he is. Hi, David. Okay, well, David gave me this tip, and he said go to the URL that you've got there, which will show up on the web later, and it supports older hardware. I've also had a couple of other internal guys say they've tried it out and they use it as well, and it works. I want to make it absolutely clear: as a company, Embarcadero cannot approve this officially because you're doing something that Apple disagree with, as far as I'm aware. Because Apple will say that they only use supported hardware and all that stuff. So don't blame us if we go ahead and do this and it doesn't work. There's not a lot I can do about that. But if you want to see what the video, a video that describes this, go to youtube.com at Dr. Macintosh. Mr. Macintosh. And he's got some videos that explain all of this. He also talks about lots of other things as well. But it does help older hardware that's no longer supported by Apple. So the good point about this, and David I made a very good point about this, which is you can get a very old MacBook, say 2010 or 2009, much cheaper. Might be a bit scratched up, which might be a bit buffed up. But if you use this Core Legacy patcher here, the Open Core patcher, it should allow it to run the latest versions or later versions of iOS, of Mac OS, and allow you to do what you need to do at a better price. Because obviously Apple want you to have the very latest hardware, and who blames them? That's how they make themselves the richest company in the world. But unfortunately, that's a bit at odds with people. Who don't have the money to pay for the very fine quality of Apple goods that are also at a very fine price. Set up things up. Okay, so you need to have Xcode installed. Once you've done that, and like I say, it's a big download, so watch out, you need to run Xcode. Okay, plug your iPhone in, and I personally, it is possible to debug this via Wi-Fi, but I suggest you actually use it plugged in directly, and you can then select devices and simulators. You see the link there. So you go to Xcode on the app on the Mac, and it doesn't matter whether it's a cloud one or locally, and devices and simulators. Okay. With the cloud-based versions, it is not possible to do this directly in this way, so you can have it being tested on a simulator, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But I'm talking about people that are actually plugging their device into a Mac. Now, this Mac could be someone else's Mac in your network. If you work in a company and someone somewhere is using a Mac, if they're not a developer, or let's say they're a graphic designer, because graphic designers love Macs, you could install Xcode on that Mac and then install PA Server, which we'll talk about in a minute, on their Mac, have it running in a minimized window, and you could connect to their Mac. It doesn't have to be your Mac, as long as you've got their permission to access it and use it. So it could be on the same network. PA Server, which is the glue that makes this all work, is an Embarcadero piece of software that we'll talk about in a second, but it will do all that. But if you want to, you need to really, if you want to debug on your own device, you need to have that plugged into the Mac wherever that Mac is. Okay, and your phone should appear, as you can see there. Mine is the iPhone SE for this particular test, and it's running iOS 17, which is the latest version, and it shows up. There's a little message when you plug it in the first time and says, Gordon asks if you can use old iPhones to test. Yes, this is an iPhone SE. It's very cheap compared to other iPhones. There is a limit to how far back you can go, but Apple have descriptions about what ones you can test on. You also don't have to use the latest version of the SDK. You can install older SDKs into Xcode as well and support older phones. But one thing about the Apple devices is that 90% of Apple devices are using the very latest version of iOS. It's just the way it works. Not true of Android. It's very fragmented, as I mentioned in the Android webinar. But iOS definitely, you're likely to be dealing with people that are using the latest version, because Apple were very good at patching their OS and also making sure that, you've got to buy the latest devices. So I would recommend an iPhone SE. I actually got mine for $5 a month with a plan over here in the United States, and $5 a month for a brand new phone. And the iPhone SE, I only use it for two things: Apple Maps navigation in my car, because it's great, and for testing and debugging apps. It works fine. So, very good. You need to go into Xcode and you need to go to locations and get one other thing as well. Make sure it says command line tools there. Okay. If it doesn't say command line tools, the minute you run PA server, it's going to actually ask you on the Mac to install the command line tools. You can also Google how to install the command line tools. I can't remember. There might even be a button in Xcode to do that. I'm sure someone in the questions will mention that as well, but you have to have those installed, because PA server, which is Embarcadero's little link on the Mac, has to run the command line tools. And what they are, it's like a compiler. So there's a CLang compiler and a linker and a few other things as well. But they come with the command line tools. You're not actually using Xcode to compile your programs as such. It is actually the command line tools that are doing that. So you're effectively calling a command line tool like a batch file, if you understand Windows, and it's compiling that way externally. So setting things up. Well, what do you need? You need to have on your Mac, or whatever Mac you're using, a thing called PA server. And what PA server is a package from Embarcadero. If you go back to that little wizard, it will tell you where to find it. You put it on your Mac and you run it, and it will then create a link between your Mac, almost like a server. It will broadcast an IP address, and it will open a port, and you connect to it from your Windows PC. Okay, that again, that Mac can be anywhere as long as you can reach it. So if it's in the Mac in cloud, then you reach it via an IP address, which they open up. They give you a public IP address that you can link to. If it's your own Mac, then obviously you're putting it on your own Mac and installing it that way. And if it's someone else's Mac in your company, then you install it on that Mac there. Run it like any other Mac program. So if you're going to need to know a little bit about Macs, you might have to Google that. What about using Mac OS in VMware? Apple don't support that, but you could have it in a VM. What a lot of developers do is they actually use a Mac for development, and they run a Windows VM in Parallels, which is the only current viable VM solution on an Apple. And they run Windows in there, and then they install the Rad Studio IDE in that VM on the Mac. But even so, you still need to install PA Server on the Mac, because I know this sounds weird, but your virtual machine on your Mac then has to talk out to its own machine, its host, using PA Server. So it's the same principle. Windows to Mac, PA Server needs to be installed on the Mac to talk. So double click and run that package, and you will then end up with two apps installed. Okay, the two apps that are installed are PA Server, in this case 23, which is the latest version, and at the time that we're recording this, and PA Server Manager. Now, personally, I don't use PA Server Manager, but you're supposed to. But I actually directly use PA Server because I just find it easier. What are the adapted mobile development norms? We'll talk about those in a moment, Mohammed. I can see there's going to be lots of questions in the Q&A. But what you need to do is follow the instructions there where it says go to your applications folder and double click on the application you want to run. So go into Finder on your Mac, go down to, and the reason for this is it will eventually appear in the little launcher, but when you first install it, you will not see it in Launcher. Okay, it doesn't create an icon in Launcher. PA Server Manager does, but PA Server doesn't. And David Cornelius, who's an MVP, is saying VMware Fusion is also a viable VM on the Mac for Windows. Okay, yeah, it's what he uses. Great. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. So PA Server, double click on that. Okay. Like I say, you can use PA Server Manager, but I use PA Server. And it will come up and it will show you a terminal window. So like a command prompt if you're not very familiar with Mac. And a couple of things will happen. First of all, it is going to ask you for a password. Note down that password. My suggestion is that you use a complicated, what's the word I'm looking for? Sophisticated password, because if you have just a single letter, then you know, someone could brute force hack it if you're accidentally open the ports. But I don't know, Mac's pretty good at preventing those things. But put the password into PA Server and note it down. Remember it, because we're going to need it in a moment. You'll get a prompt. You see that little chevron there under the words type ? For available commands. The chevron is like a command prompt of its own. Press the letter I, and it would show you two IP addresses. One of them is the public IP address that goes out to the internet, and I've blocked that out because I don't want people seeing that. What mine is, because I don't want hackers. Thank you very much. And the other one is your local IP address on the local network. Now, my Mac is on the network, so I can reach it from my PC. But if you've got it on a cloud or something like that, the cloud people will get you a strong password. Thanks, Gordon. That was the phrase I was looking for. Make sure it's a strong password. But anyway, if you're using one of the cloud services or you're using someone else's Mac set up on a, on some other machine somewhere and not in your network, then you need to use the bottom of the IPs and connect it that way. But either way, write down the password and write down the IP address. So note that IP address down because you will need it. How do we start an iOS project? Well, we're going to start by creating the project and then talk about the setup that you only do once after that. So just the same as you do with Android, we have to use FireMonkey, FMX. You're using that when you select a new multi-device application for Delphi. At the time that I'm recording this, C++ cannot create multi-device applications. That is going to change. That is our intention to make that come back for C++. But right at this very moment, you can only create iOS apps with Delphi. If you want to do it with C++, you need to use an older version. 11.3 is the most recent version that would do that. Can you do this with Community Edition? Yes, you can. You can use a Community Edition. It will connect to it. So new multi-device application. And we're just going to we're just going to create, a blank application. So it's literally a form with nothing in it. So pick blank application. You should end up with a nice blank app, so a form with nothing on it. Click on the Projects tab of the Projects Manager, and now double click on the thing that says iOS device 64-bit. Nearly all iOS devices that you're using are going to be 64-bit. If you've got a very old device, there is an outside possibility it's 32-bit. You're not going to be able to connect to that with Rad Studio 12. And in fact, Apple, I think, have obsoleted all 32-bit devices now, but I could be wrong. But certainly now it's only 64-bit. That's the only name of the game in town. And iOS Simulator, we're not going to talk about the simulator today. But we're going to do this to a real device, to a real iPhone, because I said, you can create a real app on the iPhone. So double click on iOS device 64-bit. What that does is that will make it so that you are now, everything that you're doing is for that device. But you'll notice that we can target other targets at the same time with the same project and actually the same code. So even though I'm creating an iOS app at the moment, you can also target Android with the same code, and Mac OS with the same code, and Windows 64-bit and 32-bit with the same code. This is a strength of Rad Studio. You can create the app, lay out the screens and make it look pretty and do all the things you need to do, and you can do it in the same project. But today we're going to keep that simple. We're just going to do the one project. Now, you need to connect to the Mac. You remember we're running PA Server on the Mac. It's like a little web server type thing, I suppose, but it's technically speaking, it's a custom version of Rad Server. And if you go to the top box of the IDE, you'll see the search thing next to the layout and next to the dark mode, light mode drop down, and that is the quick search box. If you type in SDK, a couple of things come up. One of them is the SDK manager page. You are only going to have to do this the very first time you set up your IDE. So all the steps I'm about to show you now, there's about 10 of them, you will only have to do this once. After that, you'll never have to do it again until you set up a new Rad Studio or something like that. So click on the SDK manager page. I don't know why it says click on the projects tab of the project manager. That's a typo there. Sorry about that. Make a connection to the Mac. You remember I told you to write down the IP address? Here's where you need it. So select connection profile manager under the thing that says deployment and click on add. Okay. That will then come up with a screen like this. Okay. And the screen is the thing saying where's the Mac? What's the IP address of the Mac? We already wrote that down, so we know it is, in my case, 192.168.1.42, or it will be whatever Mac in Cloud or Mac Stadium gave you, or it will be the IP address of your friend's Mac, or wherever you're getting that Mac from. But you need to put that IP address in. The port number, leave that as it is. You can change that port, but by default it's 64211, and the setup actually opens the firewall ports for that as well that you need, and put in the password. Now I've just put a single letter password in there just for the joke of it, but remember, use a strong password because this is a server sitting on the Mac, but the Mac and the password you put in there need to be the same. If you've got everything correct, and you may get some firewall messages when you do this, click on the button that says test connection. If everything's working correctly, it will say succeeded. Okay. If it doesn't say that, then go through the what will happen is the mobile app wizard will come up again, the screen, the web page thing that I showed you earlier on, and it'll talk you through some troubleshooting and things like that. It could be firewalls. It could be that you've got the wrong password. It could be that you've not installed PA Server properly. It could be something else. If you've got an older version of PA Server running, it will say to you, oh, yeah, you're running an older PA Server, because let's say you know, in the future there's a Rad Studio 12.2 or something. When you connect with the later version of Rad Studio and you've got an older version of PA Server on there, it'll actually tell you, and it will actually upgrade the version on the Mac. It will put it into a folder ready for you to run to upgrade it. So there's no copying around. It does it for you automatically, which is absolutely brilliant. So it does try and help you. The next thing we need to do once we've got the connection is we need to go to the same place, deployment, connection profile manager. We actually now need to click on SDK manager. So what we've got at the moment is a working connection to the Mac, and to that Gordon says, is 64211 the only port we can use? No, you can have any port you like, Gordon. Change the port. You need to change it on the Rad server. It tells you how to do that in the help. But as long as they match in the connection profile, you're good to go. So you could have 999 if it felt like it, or 666 if you don't like Apple. But anyway, you get the general message. Oh, by the way, 666 is one that's already used. I know that. Anyway, so click on Add SDK. What you've got is a connection, but you need to have the header files of the SDK for the iOS devices and all of the runtimes and everything that run on iOS copied down to your Windows machine. And the reason is it's complicated, but it needs to be able to have access to those to understand how to compile things and how to do all sorts of clever stuff that happens in the background. If you've got more than one SDK version, and that may happen if you know what you're doing, you may have installed an older version of the SDK so you can support older devices, then that drop-down box where it says select an SDK version will have multiple versions selected. By default, it already picks the latest version, which in my case, as we are recording this, is 17.2. Okay. But do all that and then click on the button that says it'll already select and they make selected SDK active. Click on the OK button, and then there should be a different screen here that I can see there's a thing coming along here. Okay, well, what will happen is once everything's working, it will. I'm missing a slide. Oh well, I must have deleted the slide by accident, but what will happen is it will cycle along through that thing, copying files down, and you'll see it, taking a certain amount of time to copy those SDK files down. It doesn't take long, 5 minutes at the most, but it does take a while. Once you've done that, you don't need to do it again. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create an iOS app for real. We're going to actually create an iOS app and put it on the phone. So what we do is we go back to our blank app. You remember there's just a form and nothing on it. I want you to go over to where it says palette, okay, and click on the little search box in the top right hand corner of the palette and select label, type in label, and it will narrow down the list so that you can see a T label. Now in 12.2 there's some others, and actually you can see in my version I've got some other controls sets installed. Excuse me. And I've got some FNC components from TMS and a few other things as well. I like TMS stuff. It's pretty cool. But we're going to just use a standard label. So what you do is you just double click on the T label entry. And what it will do is it will actually put a label on the form. But that label is going to be tiny and you need it to be big. And in a future webinar, we're going to talk about how to make different views work for different devices. So, for example, if you have an iPad, then you want to have we got past the end of the one-time only setup now? Yes, James, that is done. We don't have to worry about that again. Your one-time setup's done. Make a note. So now we can have different views. So if, for example, you are developing for iOS and you want to target iPhones, an iPhone 12 plus or whatever it is, one of the big iPhones is very different size from an iPhone SE, for example. And so you might want to put your controls in different places. We're going to talk about that in a future webinar where I'm going to tie all of these things together, the Android and the iOS and all the rest of it. But what you do is we're going to make that label control a bit more visible because by default it's going to be tiny. So what you do is you click on that label control and then click on these settings. So change the text property to say hello world, because or anything you want. You can say goodbye cruel world or anything. And that's the text that's going to show up in the label control. Click on the drop down that says text settings so it expands. Click on font so it expands and change the text size to 32. Now, there are some default sizes and you can choose styles and things like that, but we're just going to do a raw app that just has something on it. And so we go through to there and change the font size to 32. Okay. Now I want you to right click on project options, and you have to do this one time for every new app you create. Okay. But once you've done it once for that every new app, you don't have to do it again in this app. So for the new app that you've created, click on Options and go down to where it says Deployment, okay, Provisioning. If you click in there, you need to make sure you've got the right target type. So in this case, iOS 64-bit development, and it should say Auto in Provision Profile, and the developer certificate is Auto. Assuming you've got everything installed, you will get your thing filled out automatically. Now, if pro tip, if you ever actually go off and present this to someone else, if you show these screens to someone else, blur out those things before the thing that says .mobile provision and your Apple development certificate. Do not give that information out to anybody, because if you do, there are some horrible things that can happen to you, because they can start mimicking your app and all sorts of horrible things like that. So keep this information to yourself, but that's what you do. So provisioning, make sure you got the right target, look for those developer certificates to come up, and this is a horribly difficult part of this, but once it does that, if it's automatic, then you can click on the Save button. At this point, you're now ready to compile your app. Mohammed is asking, hello, are the session slides presentation, will it be sent via email to the audience attendees list? Yes, Mohammed, it will, and also it will appear in your welcome page on your IDE, and also it will be on the blog as well, the blog post that I show at the end. Later on today or sometime tomorrow, if you're watching this live, it will go live with the app, with the blog post, with all the slides in there laid out for you, and all of the video that you're watching now, the replay will be there as well. Anyway, so let's get our app working on our phone. So hit F9, okay, which will run it in the debugger, or if you want to, you can click on the left-hand run button and run it without debugging, which is Control Alt F9, I think, or you can just select whatever run button you want. It just depends if you're a kind of keystroke person or Daniel, as I said, the link at the moment is not available yet. It will be once I finish with the webinar, because it's going to include the replay, so I can't do it until the replay, until we finish recording. Just need a drink, talking too much. Anyway, so hit F9, and what will happen next is you will see messages from the PA server client side. So that's the PA client on your Windows PC as it talks to the PA server on your Mac or someone else's Mac, or your friend's Mac or the Mac in cloud or whatever. And you'll see things happen. Now, if you want to, you can expand what those command lines are. You can see the actual conversation between your Windows PC and the Mac. Eventually, assuming everything's set up properly, and this is the big $50,000 question, setting it up properly, it should say success. Excuse me. So, assuming it is successful, I just want to point out here to one of my people who was asking before about a problem. I just want to check his name. Stephen, I think it was. Oh, I'm sorry, Stephen. I forgot. I think it was Stephen. He was saying that when he ran this, it took him hours to build. And I'm going to actually talk to him later on this week. I'm going to do a personal screen sharing session with him and try and find out what the problem is. It's a problem on his Mac, but normally it should take a number of seconds to compile. I've got a fairly fast Mac M1, okay, and it was the cheapest Mac Mini you can buy. I think in US dollars it's like $700 or something like that, but it's nothing special. And if you use older hardware, then obviously it's going to be a little bit slower. But the M1s are pretty fast and relatively cost effective, and it takes 49.2 seconds to compile. So it should, because there's only a label on there. Once it compiles, it's on your phone. Now, if you go into Xcode again and in the devices and simulators section, you should see your app has been loaded. So if you go to that devices section, and you should see all of the apps that you've installed. So I've got Tidal because I quite like Tidal; its quality is pretty good, and a couple of test apps. And the one that I've just done today is called BIOS Test December 23. So EMB iOS Test. There you go, EMB iOS Test December 23. So we know it's on the device. And more importantly, if you take a look at your phone, one of two things, depending on how you did it, you'll also see an icon on your phone as well. And the icon, if because we haven't changed anything apart from the defaults at the moment, the icon is going to be the default FireMonkey icon. And the name of the app, which we're going to talk about in a future webinar, is going to be whatever name you've called it. Okay, so in my case, it's ENB iOS Test device. December 23, I think, iOS. So it's not the greatest name. I mean, obviously we'll call it something for real, but there it is. It's sitting on my device. But even better, if I'm saying run it, it will be running on my device. You remember we changed the label to say hello world? There it is. And now I've not faked this. This is actually a screenshot that was taken from my iPhone. I took it this morning at 12 minutes past 8 in the morning because that's how dedicated I am. I did get up at start work at like 6:30 every morning, every day. I write code every day, but I have been doing things for you to make sure this webinar is good. So there it is on your phone. Hello world. Cool, huh? And a couple of other things. When you compile and deploy the program, which is, we're not going to talk directly about that, but what it will do is create a file with a .ipa extension. Now, if you're used to creating Windows apps, your Windows apps normally have a .exe extension. Okay, and Android apps, if you went and followed the instructions for the previous webinar where we created an Android app, that'll end with a .app extension, or .apk, I think, actually, my mistake. But on an iPhone, it's a .ipa extension. Excuse me. Where will you find it? Well, it depends if you went to the release configuration and changed the output directory. But by default, it's going to be the name of the platform, which is iOS 64, and then the name of the configuration, so debug or release. Okay, and you're looking for a .ipa file. So here's one from a real app of mine that goes out to someone, and it's in the name of the product is VNA phone list, which is also the project name. And then it goes out to iOS device 64 because that's what I was creating. And then under there, this is the release version. So I go in there and there's the .ipa. Now this is the thing that you need to submit to the Apple App Store when you've followed all their advice and made sure that your iPhone device app is complying with their regulations. There's a lot more to do before you can create any kind of app, including things like creating icons, creating splash screens. Good news is Rad Studio 12 does all that for you, and we're going to show that in a minute. But there are lots of rules and regulations. Apple are very, very, very strict. Majority of people, the first time they create a real iOS app, which they are selling or at least giving away in the Apple App Store, the majority of people get rejected at least the first time and sometimes several times. Don't be disheartened. It's not because you're useless. It is extremely difficult to get all the ducks lined up in a row and get everything right first time. I know very experienced developers who have got dozens of apps in the App Store and they still get their apps sometimes rejected first time round. It's easier for updates because generally, you've been through the process once already. But that .ipa package is what you need to upload it. You can use Transporter to upload your IPA file to Apple's developer account for publishing, says Alessandro. Correct. Thanks for that tip. Apple's Transporter picks this file, the .ipa file, and uploads it to the developer account, ready for publishing, and then gets published out to the App Store. Even so, there's still lots of hoops you have to go through before you can definitely get in the App Store. It's a lot harder with Apple. Android has lots of rules as well for the Google Play Store and for the Amazon Fire Store. I think they call it App Store, or I don't know, Amazon Store for apps. It's a lot easier, and of course you can sideload apps. If it's on your own phone, you don't really need to do anything more. You've already deployed it by default. But if you want to copy it around to other people, if you're an enterprise developer, then you've probably got something called MDM, which is the multi-device manager, which I think has been replaced by something else now. You can also use a number of other systems, like TestFlight is another system as well, which will distribute out to people. But the .ipa file is the golden holy grail thing. That's what you're looking for in the end. That's your .exe if you're familiar with Windows. So that's kind of a very brief spin through the details. Next, in a following webinar, we're going to look at actually adding some real things to apps. I'm going to answer some questions in a minute, but I just want to talk about one of my favorite features in Rad Studio 12. And this also works for iOS and Android and Windows apps as well. And this is using the power of Skier for Delphi, which is built into Rad Studio 12. And that is an icon creator. I love this feature, because before I had this available, one of the most time-consuming things with apps that go to the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store was creating all the different apps, icon sizes and splash screen sizes that you need to support the devices. If you think about the different number of Android devices out there, there are hundreds and hundreds of different form factors, maybe even thousands. Some are 5 inches long, some are 4.5, some fold in half, some have got bends in the middle, some are super high res, some are lower res, some are not so great res, some of them are older. Same with the iPhones. You know, your iPhone SE has got half the resolution of the big super ultra devices, and you have to create icons for all of those. With this tool that's built into Rad Studio 12, it does it like that, single click. It's absolutely brilliant. I just, you know, there were solutions out there. I think Patrick Prematan, who is always on these webinars, I'm sure you're there right now, Patrick. I can't check the list at the moment, but if you are, yeah, I said hello to you earlier, but maybe you've gone home or something. But you know, I know he had a utility that created these. There are a few out there, but this is a very cool feature of 12. So we're going to talk about that in a future webinar. Don't forget the series that we've got a lot of them. So let's take some questions, okay, for the Q&A, because there are a lot of questions. Some of the people have left. I know that's how it works. That's fine. But let's do the Q&A. First off, before you say anything, Patrick says he's still there, but Twitch started. Yeah, not a problem. And also someone's beeping me through the little channel there, so I apologize. It's probably picking that up. Right, let's go through the questions. So you can use Transporter to load your IPA file. Yes, that's very good. Someone was saying that the link is a 404. It will be active later, and we'll get to that. If you're watching on a replay, it will have already become active. I'm just going to try and find out who on earth it is that's messaging me, because I'm going to tell them to stop. I've got everything on Do Not Disturb, and still some of these devices allow these things come through. Will the app you have put in the App Store remain there if you stop paying your yearly $99 yearly fee? Now, this is a complicated question, because if it's an enterprise app, it never goes in the App Store in the first place. But the answer is, if you close your developer account, and by that I mean you stop using it, then the answer is no, it will not stay in there. But there are some weird rules, because what happens is every year you have to refresh your developer certificates. It's kind of how they make sure it works. And you can only refresh it for a year. Because your app was installed with a specific and signed with a specific developer certificate, As soon as you close your account, if your developer certificate becomes invalid, then nobody can install it again. However, if it's already installed, it will continue to work, I believe, but I would need to confirm that by looking at the Apple details. So, but I think the short answer is no. Someone asking me some technical support questions. John, your question is about Interbase. Can you email me that directly? I'm not going to put it up on the questions and answers, but if you've got a question about something that's not to do with the webinar, can you just email it to me and I'll have a look at it for you. I'm not going to give you technical support, but I definitely will try and sort things out. Can two developers work with two different Delphi developer products using the same Mac simultaneously? Yes, you can. Yeah, but you can't compile the same app at the same time. Is the answer to that. The reason is that you're running a command line tool. I think the PA server will only allow you to do one thing at one time. I've not tried that myself because it's just me most of the time. But thanks, John. I see you saying sure to that. You can definitely both use the same Mac. There are some complications because you need to make sure that you've got your developer certificates installed in the right places, and then you probably can't, unless you're working for the same company with the same developer program, enterprise developer program, you would need to actually pick the right developer certificate because you would need two of them on there, one for you and one for your colleague. And if you pick auto, it's just going to pick the most up-to-date one. Might even get complicated and not understand, but there is no reason why you can't use the same Mac at the same time, as far as I'm aware. How are enterprise apps distributed to users? Good question, Keith. Okay, so they are distributed to end users. You can use I'm going to type this in. You can use a custom web page, and literally they can download it directly from the web page. That's one of my customers do. They have a private web page. Their employees go to that web page and they click on an icon and it downloads it directly to their phone from the web page. You can only do that with enterprise apps. You can't do it with App Store apps. Or they can use MDM, which may be something different now, or any other form of distribution. The other thing that you can do with enterprise apps, and actually apps in general, but if you're a member of the enterprise developer program, you can actually create unlisted apps. I think you can do that without an enterprise account as well. The unlisted app, what you do is you give the link for the unlisted app to people you want to install that app, and they can then go to that link, even though if you search for it in the App Store you won't find that app, but unlisted app will work. It's a bit like an unlisted YouTube video. It exists on your account, but nobody can find it unless they know the link. Downside is, of course, that if someone gives out that link to one of their friends, then they can install that app as well. So you probably want some username and password kind of stuff going on, authentication stuff. Can Delphi work with Firebase Crashlytics? Yes, it can do anything that any other app can do. Firebase is there's lots of different ways of doing crash analytics, and in fact, with your apps, when you run your apps and you go into Xcode, there's an Xcode console log viewer there. So if your apps generate exceptions or you output to the debug log, you can go into Xcode and you can view the log messages. By the way, there are a lot, millions of them. But you can go in there and view those logs because it's just a regular app. It just because the Delphi app doesn't make it anything different on the iPhone. It is the same, iPhone, iPad, or whatever. It is the same thing. So you can view it in Xcode's log viewer. If I use Mac in Cloud, how do I transfer the IPA to my phone? Actually, the IPA, .IPA gets created on your Windows machine. So you don't need to transfer it. It gets transferred back to you from Mac in Cloud or whatever it is. Okay, so the Mac doesn't have, and Mac does have the .ipa on it, but actually you get a copy created locally. You can also distribute ad hoc apps via a private web page. Oh, I didn't know that. I have to say that's very cool. Alan says you can distribute ad hoc apps via a private web page. Thing about ad hoc apps where you're not enterprise, you do actually have to include the device IDs in there. So your user could not install it unless they are known to you. And there is a limit to how many devices you can add. So iPhones have to be known for non-enterprise apps. For enterprise apps, they don't have to be known. I have no idea how many phones are being my enterprise apps are being installed on. I don't care. They pay me. I mean, mostly it's a volunteer thing anyway. But as they install it on all sorts of apps, iPhones. So at one point they started installing it on an iPad. Luckily, I'd created an iPad view as well, but it was originally created as an iPhone app. But they would install it on like 500 different phones at one point, and I didn't know, and I don't care. Whereas if it's ad hoc on your own non-enterprise app, then you do actually have to know all the device IDs, and you include them in your certificates and app IDs thing. Can you use SQLite databases like Android apps? Yes, you can. You can do anything that you do. We're not talking about that yet, but in February I'm going to do a lot of database stuff where I'm going to show you Android, iOS, and other apps you connecting to all sorts of databases, including MySQL, Postgres, what else? MariaDB, SQLite, NexusDB, and Interbase, I think, are the ones we're going to demonstrate. What is the best way to turn a web page into an app? There's no good answer to that. I haven't really got an answer to that, to be honest. It's like saying, what's the nicest cake I can make? There's different ways of creating it. It's down to your personal taste. What do you mean by best way? Well, it depends on what your definition of best is. Are there any plans for Embarcadero to actually Rad Studio Delphi running on a Mac instead of having to use PA server? We get asked this. I have to give a kind of special answer to this. Okay, Embarcadero are restricted by US laws in connection with what are called forward-looking statements. And so we cannot pre-announce things whether they are going to happen or not happen. And so if I said, well, we'd really like to do that, then that's true. We would really like to have a cross-platform IDE. Of course, why wouldn't we? Likewise, I would also say we would like to get back to C++ Builder being able to create iOS and Android apps. But if I said to you, that will be next Thursday at 2 p.m., that's actually against the law for me to say. Okay, and as a representative of Embarcadero. So I cannot tell you when it would be, not because we're being secretive, but because we are prevented from giving forward-looking statements. So the answer is, at the moment, we do not have any plans that we could share, and there's not at this time. That's not a hint. I'm not saying there is or isn't. It's just not something we can talk about. Thanks for your time. Happy Christmas and New Year. Yes, thanks very much, Paolo. Good luck. Does Android have anything like the Enterprise app? Actually, I don't know. The reason is the Android ecosystem is slightly different in that it's a bit more permissive. Because I think you can have private Google Play stores to get to. John is asking any alternate email. No, that's just my email. Email that. I'll come back to you. It's fine. But Google's a bit more permissive, and you can install like a customized Play Google Play on the Android devices and lock them down as well. So they have lots of facilities for, locking phones and tablets into a particular mode, so it doesn't really come into it. The other thing you can do is create a thing called a kiosk app, and you can do this on iOS as well, but it's more popular on Android. On a kiosk app, when the device reboots, it just runs that app, and you're locked into that app. So it could be an Android app that, say it's a time clock, for example, and you've written an Android app and you've got a cheap Android tablet on the wall, bolted to the wall or whatever. And when the power goes off, the device finally, the battery runs out and it turns off. When it restarts, it starts up just like it did before. Once the battery power is recharged or the power is back, and it goes back into that single Android app, a kiosk app, that's what it's called. You can do that. Patrick says, for Mac and Cloud, we had solutions to use our iPhone, iPad remotely. It depends on the software used to connect to the distant computer. It worked in the past. I haven't checked recently. Yeah. I checked it a couple of months ago and it was working fine. When will this come live? My URL later today, or the reason I say that is in order to put that blog post up, I like to include the replay in it. And the replay takes a little while to upload because we'd have to download it from GoToWebinar and then upload it to YouTube and then put some links in and rest something. So, and I'm a busy boy, and also I haven't eaten yet. It's nearly lunchtime, so I could do with some food. Internationalization, how is it possible to provide select different languages? I am going to do a webinar on that. To do a webinar on localization options. With Rad Studio, localization is, you can do it in a couple of different ways. There's some very good tool sets out there, called Silang is one of them. There's a few others as well. You can do it manually, and also there's some things like resource strings and stuff like that. But I'm going to do a whole webinar about that because it's a subject that comes up. There are some issues to do with right to left and left to right languages, and you know what we need to do. Hello, what are the mobile application life cycle development process steps? Okay, I'm not really sure what you're asking there. I'll explain. Okay, so what I think you're saying is, and I could be wrong, you're saying once you've got an app out there on the App Store, what happens in terms of putting some new features in and off you go? Basically, you work on the program as if it's any other program and make sure that you've got an updated build number, but same package number, same bundle ID. You then go back into your Apple account, submit the app as a new version, and then the customers will get the updated version. It'll say there's a new version available and download it depending on their settings. For Android, same thing. It just depends on their Play settings. You submit a later version. With Android, you can actually automatically update the local version, and it will do it. With enterprise apps, if you're downloading it via a web page, you just get them to go to the latest web page, click on it, and downloads it, updates it in place. So it, life cycle just depends on what you're going to do. Is there any possibility for a student to create and test apps on his or home device without using App Store and the yearly fee? I am not sure about the Apple fee. Is the answer. But otherwise, yes, you can definitely do it. For a student, there's two options. You can go and download the community version of Rad Studio, which is completely free if you are a student. There is a limit on income, so you cannot be earning from development more than $10,000, I think, a year. Look at the details because I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but make sure when you sign the agreement you are telling the truth, because if you lie and Embarcadero catch you out, they have some very fierce compliance people who will chase you for a license. So make sure you're You're not messing about and saying, "Oh yeah, I only earn 10,000." It actually turns out you're earning a lot more, and you exaggerated how poor you were. But if you're a student and you're generally just learning, download the community edition, and you can target most devices using that. If you are an educator and you're watching this, like a professor or a tutor, or you are a student actually in college, please contact us, and you can contact me on my email address is there. Please contact us, and we will talk to you about an academic program. With the academic program, if you're a genuine educational establishment or you are a genuine course like that, we can do some deals for you, and we can get you possibly even free product or extremely very cheap product, like lots of versions for a very small amount of money, relatively speaking, based on an educational establishment. But we would like to talk to educators because we want to do more. We want people to learn about Rad Studio's benefits in college and schools. And I believe in being truthful in the way I'm showing what you can do with a product. I personally believe that Rad Studio is one of the best ways of creating cross-platform apps and Windows apps and various other things as well. So, we're very interested in talking to educators. If you're in school, come and approach us, and we'll hook you up with the right people, and we'll talk to your professors or your college tutors or whatever they are, and talk about getting copies of Rad Studio in the schools. There are lots of different options. For some people, it might be free. For some people, it might be paid. Just depends on the circumstances, because everybody's different. Did you use any add-ons, plugins, and/or APIs or libraries? No. What I did today was just pure Rad Studio. You don't need anything else. It does it all for you. Someone is saying that my bird, a parrot, is calling. Yes, unfortunately, that's why I like to pre-record these things. His name is Woody, and he's a cockatiel. And yes, he is trying to make himself known. He's in the background. He does whistle if you're happy and inert, flap your wings, and a few other things as well. He speaks as well. He says, I'm only little. Not that I excuse him for making noises, but his name's Woody. Your email bounced on my server. So, really? Embarcadero.com. Shouldn't do. Maybe misspelled my name. Barker, B-A-R-K-R. Sometimes people put Baker. Try again. But I see your email address there, John. If you use cloud service Mac, is the PA server installed there? For Mac in cloud, it used to be. I don't know if it still is, but Mac in cloud certainly used to say that it was the latest version was installed. However, I think the one time I did use it for a while, the version they had was out of date. I had an account that didn't allow me to install things with the right permissions. I told them, and they had it installed in 5 minutes. Excuse me. Ask them is the answer. Approach them and see. Their support is very responsive, and we're not particularly recommending one person either way, but my experience of them was very positive. In Embarcadero, okay. Yeah. John, you're spelling Embarcadero wrong. That's why your email messages are not getting through. It's Embark, Ambarcadero. You're spelling it wrong. That's why it's bouncing. Dave says, nice name, Woody. I will tell him, and I will let him know. Okay. I think I've answered everybody's questions, and we are now approaching an hour and a half. A lot of people saying thanks. John is now realizing he's spelling mistakes. Don't worry, I do it all the time. My wife, when I went to get married to my wife, we had a marriage certificate, and a little joke. We went up there, and the marriage certificate, a marriage license, which you need in the United States, they'd spelt it out in the name of Ian Parker with a P. So she was nearly married to Mr. Parker, because if they sign that, if the registrar at the wedding signs it, it's basically she's legally married to someone called Ian Parker, and it's not me. They were very worried about this, but they fixed it. But yeah. How quickly can you quickly? How do I get the webinar? Internet was bad. Johan, the blog post and the welcome page in the IDE Learn section will show it. So if you want to see the replay of this, and it's a long webinar, so a lot of people will do. If you open the IDE, look at the welcome page. On the right, there's a thing that says Learn, and the webinar will be there at that point. I'll upload it as soon as I can. It takes us a while, so it'll be later on today, hopefully. But I can't say. And yes, it will include all the questions and answers as well, just in case, and also the bird shouting in the background, etc., etc. Okay. All right. Well, look, I think we've got to quite a time. I don't see any other really pressing questions, but if you have got a question, feel free to email me. Spell the email right, John. It's at ian.barker@embarcadero.com, and I will do my best to answer. If I don't know the answer, and I don't always know the answer, then I'll put you on to someone who probably does know the answer. Couple of things: I'm not there to give you technical support. There are much better people than me that do that. And I'm not the right person. I know I will not forward your support messages to people because life's too short. I would get flooded with thousands of emails. Just support at embarcadero.com, the people to talk to. Go to the support page on the website. It's much easier. Second thing I won't do, no, I'm not going to get you discounted or free versions of software or indeed anything else. Talk to your salespeople, go to sales and have a chat with them. If you're struggling to pay, or you're not sure which version is right for you, talk to them. That's their job. They do all that. My job is not to try and give away freebies, and I can't anyway. Actually, mostly, I can do certain things, but I'm not going to give you free versions. Okay, that's just not what I'm there for. It's not a good use of my time either. But anyway, let's see where we're at. Just make sure there aren't anything else. Yeah, we're good, I think. So John says, thank you, Ian Barcadero. Very good. That is actually, I might have that said before. That's funny. And a lot of people saying thanks. Well, thanks, Bala and Alan and Rock and all the others. And thanks to Woody, yes. And Dave, thank you. And a lot of positive comments and lots of very positive feedback about the webinars in general. We've got more coming. Next week is no webinars. Because it's a holiday weekend in much of the Western world and a few other countries as well. But after the new year, we will be back. Okay, and we'll be doing some more. Hello, Conrad in Amersham. Yes, I like Conrad. I like Amersham. We will be doing more in January, and on Fridays we've got some in January that are more in depth for existing users and much more complicated topics, shall we say, or more sophisticated topics. These are intended to give people an overview so that you can know what RAD Studio 12 can do for you. And we've got some other subjects. If there's something you'd like to see me discuss or put in a webinar, please email me at my email address, and I will do my best to, if we get enough people ask for it, or even if we've only got a few, I will actually do a webinar on it. We're going to keep these going, probably every Tuesday, and most Fridays as well. Thanks, Lars. He says, thank you, Ian, and Merry Christmas. Thank you, Lars, and thank you, Dapo and Kurt and Slolt and Gordon and all the others as well. Thanks very much, guys. I am going to have to go and do something else. To those of you that celebrate it, have a Merry Christmas from me. If you don't celebrate Christmas or it's Hanukkah or something like that, thanks very much. Good luck to you as well, and season's greetings to the rest of you. And anybody else who doesn't celebrate and is wondering, what to do on Christmas Day, watch all the replays and have a nice relaxing time when a lot of the places like the US and that are completely shut down and eating far too much food. Peace and well-being to all of you. I hope you're all going to have a peaceful time. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.